How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the More We Know podcast. My name is Mir, your host. The More We Know podcast is a top 10% mentorship podcast in the world where every single month we bring you on new mentors from all around the world, like the founder of Reebok, the mayor of Miami, founder of Anytime Fitness. We bring on a multitude of different guests from different industries so we could provide you real life mentorship in your pocket from literally wherever you are, whether it's at work or in the car, on vacation, wherever you are, you get access to a high quality mentor in your pocket. See, a lot of us don't have access to mentors and we make that accessible. And today I'm really excited to announce our next guest. This is a little bit different than the guests we've had in the past. This is an industry that is going to revolutionize the world, that is similar to what Steve Jobs did with Apple. And I have one of the leading experts in the industry by the name of Raffael Dickreuter, who is the creative and technology entrepreneur based in LA. He's originally born in Switzerland, and he has a diverse professional background in film, visual effects, design, AR, advertising, and photography. He is the CEO of Superba AR, which is a company specializing in augmented reality and machine learning. He's done some amazing work. As a designer, he worked on feature films that you'd be very familiar with, such as Man of Steel, Furious 7, Terminator, Salvation, The Incredible Hulk, one of my favorites, Iron Man, and other companies he's worked with, such as Snapchat and DreamWorks. He's worked for directors such as Steven Spielberg. He's worked for Zack Snyder, Martin Campbell, Gore Verbinski. He's been featured in different news outlets. He's done many interviews. He's also worked on Black Mirror, which is a famous show that we saw there. He also founded xsibase.com back in 2002, which became the world's largest social online community for soft image visual effects software in a time way before Facebook. I mean, he just has so much experience, whether it's the viral projects he has from Black Mirror to Iron Man Grounded, which have been featured in media around the world, or the augmented reality. Today's discussion, we're going to take you down his path, how he did it, what the heck augmented reality is, and what the future looks like. So thank you so much for being on today, Raffael.
Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well. So, Raffael, let's kick off the discussion here. I just gave you a lengthy introduction, but what is it exactly that you do? Like, describe to us what this means for someone that has no idea.
So I'm running a company that we specialize in augmented reality and virtual reality and metaverse projects. We're basically a consulting company. We help people make apps, so that, let's say, virtual try-on. We do 3D visualizations for brands. Who basically, like, we just did a project for Johnson & Johnson where surgeons around the world need to learn how to use a VR headset and how they could perform surgeries and how they have to use it. So they have training for that. And we also do a mix of just general app development. And we're also now really working a lot on 3D websites. So as we believe the web's becoming much more 3D, instead of just scrolling through pages, you actually get to see, maybe visit a store or see a product, the perfect digital twin, look at, see how it's made. And basically, yeah, that's kind of the field we're in right now.
Yeah, how did you get into this? Because obviously the metaverse is not entirely a old concept. In some capacity, it's fairly new, right? How did you get into this industry?
So for me, it started out when I was 15 years old. I wanted to work in Hollywood movies. I was like, okay, I love explosions. I want to work where the big movies are made. And that's kind of how I ventured and learned about visual effects. And I started to learn 3D softwares at that time. And then as I found my way into the movie industry, you see much more things are always now done in the computer. Back then, that's in the early 2000s, visual effects was kind of one part and the part is still practical. Now we live in a world where entire movie scenes are created in the computer, even the actor, even everything. And people have no clue, like the entire city. If you take a recent scene from the latest Jurassic World movie, there's an entire scenes where all the actors are digital, the motorcycle, everything, and people think only parts of it are. So that connects then to the metaverse or the 3D internet, maybe, which is a better term, I think, is that, well, we're 3D creatures. Our human beings, we're not flat, but we're all using devices that are 2D. The internet is still a flat experience so far. And as this moves more and more forward, it makes sense that you get to see certain things in 3D space, and you can see it and from any angle, be it furniture, being it the bag you want to buy, be it the try-on of glasses, to maybe seeing a real-time preview of the construction you want to do in your house, the colors you want to change on your walls, or the new house you want to build, or even the car that you want to modify. So there's many products that people use every day that it would just make sense to see it. If you want to decorate your house, if you could to see the furniture in the real world scale versus here's a picture and then you realize you have to send it back because you ordered it online. You actually realized you saw the real world scale. You realized, oh, this fits perfectly. You could take a video, you could share with your friends and family and got their input. And now you're making much more informed decisions. So the next wave now of the internet is going that way. 3D graphics now are reaching a level where in real time photorealism is possible. We need more support on the browser side for that, but that's what's now upon us, and I think it's an exciting time.
Yeah, look, Raffael, I have literally so many questions for you because this industry is so unique, it's so cool, it's so new, and there's literally so much going on. But before getting into that, you're mentioning this is the new wave, the new reality. What exactly is going on that people aren't seeing? Because if you look at Meta, the company itself, it's no secret Meta's been struggling significantly. The stock is down over 60%. Analysts and Wall Street are questioning if this whole metaverse idea is just sort of cuckoo fairy dust or if there's a real way to become profitable. So they're really questioning Mark Zuckerberg's idea. And Snapchat just struggled and went through their own round of layoffs. And, I know their division of AR and VR has decreased slightly as well. So what are we missing that the industry is not seeing right now? Because it sounds like there's a lot of negative sentiment and bearish news in this space.
So this is a great question. I think we have to unpack a few things first. The metaverse is a complicated term. It may also not be the best term. It just packs everything in it. It could be NFTs, it could be 3D websites, it can be avatars, and people overall get very confused by it. So I'd rather have to look one by one. First thing is why this is struggling. Everybody now can make videos on their phone. Everybody can take a photo. That's all easy now. But 3D is hard. 3D is a pain. 3D is not easy to create. And so the idea that you just have a virtual environment and everything looks perfect, unfortunately, is an illusion. So 3D still has to get a lot easier, and that's where a lot of money is being spent right now. But if you look at the latest AI research, you will see incredible stuff. Like you will see AI image generators and 3D generators, which just you would type and it will create the perfect image or perfect digital assets. And that shows you something. The next thing is it needs clarity. Not everybody wants to be in a virtual reality headset and basically see other people this way. Maybe it's not the best way. People think they want to be in the real world, but they just want to make it better. Or they might have available what's useful to them, not everything. So this whole topic is basically wrecking way too much into one thing and all at the same time. So you almost have to break it down. What is useful, what is not. Seeing a product you want to buy on yourself versus on a model is useful. Having to put a headset on and creating an avatar and seeing a cartoon figure of your people you work with, maybe it's not that useful yet. Maybe it's not. It's only for certain people. It's a use case, and for others, it's like I rather would do this on a website. Seeing maybe how your apartment's going to look, or the product you're going to buy, or modify the car, and have to make a confident decision. Is that useful? Yes. Having to create digital assets and trying to sell it to other people, and not sure what the value is or what you get to do. Yeah. So there's just many open things. But there's so many different topics that basically have to be addressed, and they always have to be addressed individually. And so for a while, I think the big companies will spend the money, and maybe that's a good thing because they're the ones who can't afford it. And then as we do the rest, as it matures, the rest of us can then see, okay, let's not do this. We now see what works and what people want. So it's maybe actually good what's happening.
Yeah, I know, right? It's so these companies have a real privilege in being able to spend a lot of money, and some smaller startups would not have that same privilege. So for people that are looking to get into this space, it's quite capital intensive. How exactly did you start the company and be able to not only capitalize and monetize, but work with some of the biggest names that you're mentioning here?
The company got started basically when I was at Snapchat. I just saw, this opportunity when Apple came out with ARKit. And I just saw an opportunity that, this is the beginning of the whole new wave. You could just kind of imagining it. It was not all that clear. But for me, it was clear, I think this is where it's going. I have been doing this in movies for over a decade, where you use 3D tools to visualize action sequences, movie sets, the things you have to build. The same way architects obviously visualize the massive buildings they have to do to raise the funds, get everybody on the same page. And so it's natural that there might be other industries who want to use this. And in the end, it got started with encouragement from my business partner, who's been a great supporter, and also the having a first client to pretty much say, there is a project, I want to build a virtual mall. And basically that was the beginning. There was a clear need. Somebody wanted to do something specific, and that kind of was the kickoff to get going. And after that, you start picking more clients up on the way.
It's all about compounding right over time. Startups is not an easy task, but once you build that momentum, there's a lot of potential there. For people listening, it might be a variety of different folks from around the world. Let's say someone is looking to get into VR or AR. What exactly would I hire you for? For example, like if I wanted to hire Superba AR, like what would you be doing for me?
We're kind of a company that can do the whole thing. We could help conceptualize what you're trying to do exactly. We could say, what's the smart way to go, and maybe where it's getting expensive and where you could cut costs. Then we are both creative and technical. We could help on the creative side, creating the assets or animations or all the elements. And then we can also do the whole programming, create an AR app or VR app or a whole application for multiple users. If you want to do a web 3D experience where many people can join. So we kind of full stop shop and can help with everything. And I think the thing we're seeing is just a lot of people want to get started on this, kind of like way back when people wanted the website and they're maybe not really sure where to start. And so a good way is probably you start with one thing. You say, I want to create a digital double of our shoe collection, and people need to be able to put them on their feet and post it on Instagram. Maybe that's something specific. Or you say, okay, we recently had a bank ask us, okay, what if we make the bank experience more visual, so it's not so abstract? Well, could you have a bank, basically enter the bank digitally through the browser and then see it and understand that you're in line and that kind of things. So we're so much overwhelmed with data now. Is there maybe things to make it more visually appealing, but also make it faster, of course?
That makes sense. That's really, really cool. One thing I wanted to ask you about there is you mentioned a little bit about the different variations of, the internet, the iPhone, the technological advances. And it sounds like the metaverse and augmented reality and virtual reality is similar to that. Go back to 2001. There was these articles that came out calling the internet a fad, right? When we were going through a tech bubble, the internet back in the 90s and early 2000s, it was cool. The .com was cool, but it wasn't necessarily, people were very confused and bearish about the future of the internet, especially after the .com crash. They didn't know how unique the technology really was. Do you think that the metaverse and the augmented and VR space is going through the same rough patch that the internet did before eventually becoming maybe, what's going to be a necessary part of our life?
Yes and no. I think there will be a large part of it that will just be deemed not needed, or like not everything has to be 3D. Not everybody wants to be in a headset, So I think it will have to clear out the things that are not needed, and there will be the use cases where you just will go back and say, well, I don't want to, like furniture. I don't want to buy furniture that I have not seen in a 3D model and that I can verify it as well. Or maybe in the future, I want to be able to try on clothes at home, So many girls order clothes online and have to send it back and they try it on at home. If you have your digital measurements and the digital clothing also can fit you, it could be a much faster way to verify all that, and there's less returns. That's a clear, useful thing. And so there's going to be those things that really will change everything as they're really worked out. There's very useful, there's no going back. And there's many others where like, well, it's a fun idea, but it's just too complicated and the world doesn't need it. So there will be both.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you see, I've heard something, I have friends that work at Meta, and one thing I've heard that, technology that has been explored is the idea of being able to taste and smell in the VR world. Do you know anything about that? And if so, what exactly does that technology look like?
I'm not too familiar with that one. I'm sure this is an interesting idea. But again, we also have to ask ourselves, why do we want to need that? I'm sure for maybe if you want to buy food, that you need to smell first, or a perfume, this makes sense. But I don't think it's the goal to always be in the virtual world, right? It's rather where it's useful. So my belief is I rather want to question the quality of the Google homepage. You know, you search and it's overloaded with ads and it's hard to find things and it's a list. And I'm sure there's a reason for it, why it's still this way. But I would challenge that, saying, why is there not many different ways to look at search information? Maybe there's a mind map, maybe there's a 3D view, or again, what I believe in, that I can point my phone at things, and in the context what I'm looking at, I'm searching, all that matters is shown to me. That I think is what's useful to connecting all this, more so than, So where it's not a gimmick, it really saves you time, it makes sense, and it adapts to how we function as humans.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one thing I wanted to unpack is, I know there's differences, right? I like that even though you're clearly bullish on this industry, you work in the industry, you also recognize that there is the good and the bad. Like there's the yes and the no for what you think will shape in the next decade. But, the idea of the headsets themselves, like putting on the VR headsets like an Oculus, do you see similarities to that infancy stages like the iPhone 3G? When that first iPhone came out, remember, it was, the BlackBerry was still superior. The iPhone was cool, but, BlackBerry was the top dog. Do you see similarities now with those Oculus devices? Like, do you think in the next 5 years, everyone will start wearing those devices, whether you're in medical school or, what do you think?
While I'm for this industry, I'm not necessarily sure I'm for that everybody should wear a headset. Because imagine, okay, you go to a restaurant and everybody's already on their phone. Now let's add the headset on top of that, and literally nobody will ever talk to each other again. So I have my reservations there. I think the headsets are still too big. If they become super slick and slim, form-fitting, there will be more use cases where it's really good. Maybe as you're doing training or sports or analysis of all kinds, that's definitely would be desirable. And then there should also be, hopefully, it will not impact everything we do. So there's kind of a, because we already seen what the phone does, which is amazing, but it really also, people can't get off their phones anymore. So
I know, right?
Same time, the whole UI question, okay, people are used to swiping on their phones and using their fingers, which is great. But what's the UI on a headset? You're gonna probably have to use your hands in the air. So everybody's a conductor in the air. Let's see that world out there. How's that gonna look? So we'll see. It's very hard questions to answer. And while I'm excited about technology and the future, in the end, it's going to be interesting how it comes. And it's just a massive leap, So it's probably going to have slowly incremental with them some breakthroughs, and then also things that are just abandoned. Like, okay, we tried it. People don't want it.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's very helpful context. And I think, you hit the nail on the head there. It's also about convenience. Like I've tried the Oculus on a few times. Those are bulky headsets to wear. And although they're pretty cool, it is kind of, you're not going to want to wear that for 7-8 hours. So that makes total sense. Now, this is a mentorship podcast, and people come, and you're our mentor today. And, I want to take it, scale it back a little bit. You've had an illustrious career. You've worked at some of the biggest, like Snapchat. You've worked with some of the biggest clients in the world. You've worked on projects like Iron Man and Black Mirror. But, to make it simple, what is AR, what is VR, and what is machine learning? Like, what do those three terms actually mean?
Okay, so augmented reality means you're basically overlaying 3D elements or information over the real world in real time. And the word real time here is important because it's basically real time visual effects. If you did it in movies, you would do this in post-production, overlay, make all the graphics, but it doesn't happen in real time. So augmented reality is overlay information in real time. But you're still present here and you see everything the real world, but there's some visual elements that are popping up that are augmenting your space, basically. And the term virtual reality is where you put a headset on right now and you're in a different space. So your 360 degrees of your field of view is covered in a virtual world. You could be on Mars, you could be underwater, you could go anywhere you want. And you're basically inside a virtual space and you can look around and do things. But your body is still in the real world. So if you trip over a cable or bump into a table, you didn't escape that. So.
And then machine learning, what is the idea there and how does it relate to AR, VR?
Machine learning is a massive term. It's the ability for a computer to learn and get better and better. That means it could be image sorting, it could be data sorting, It could create its own images or image sequences. It involves also deep fake. So let's say you train the computer to learn how a person speaks, and now you could change what that person says, or you could basically store a person digitally, where let's say you record of an actor who's no longer alive, but you put it all into the computer, how this person speaks. And now you can bring them back alive because you built the library and the computer learned exactly, what their smirk is or how they talk. And you can bring them back because of that. And of course, in the financial world, the ability to predict things you're learning, or even playing chess, that machine learning applies, that they got better and better, they learn and can do things a human couldn't see.
Oh, that makes sense. That's very helpful. And I think, yeah, you're right. Algorithms and machine learning and AI is definitely driving a lot of different businesses and new technologies for sure. So it's pretty unique.
Yeah. And to connect it all, it connects back to Terminator or Terminator 2, the idea of Skynet, and the machines become self-aware. And who knows? Maybe in the future we'll see a self-flying, military jet who decides everything on its own. Yeah. And that will be all based on everything together, from all the computer vision to machine learning.
Right. Yeah, that'd be interesting to see where we go. You mentioned like even a movie like the movie you just mentioned. How about your background is impressive in that space as well. Like, how did you get involved with like Steven Spielberg, who's one of the most famous movie people of our lifetime?
Well, definitely as a kid, there was a dream to say like, look, one day I would love to work for Steven Spielberg, and that's something I wanted to experience. But I lived far away in Switzerland, and it seemed an impossible thing to achieve. But as I found my way into the film industry, I was surrounded by great people who worked usually as a team on these movies. And one day came the opportunity where they're like, well, we have a Steven Spielberg movie and we're going to put you on it. And all of a sudden you drive up to the Amblin offices and there he is, and I got to actually work for him twice. And but one movie was canceled. It was actually based on our topic, would have been really cool. It was called The Robopocalypse. And it was a whole future with robots and everything. But the movie was decided not to make it as it was too expensive.
Wow. Wow. And then what exactly did you do with the movies for like Steven Spielberg?
Yeah.
Like you're working with one of the most famous industry people. What did you do for him?
So I worked in the field of pre-visualization. That's when you sort of create action sequences and movie sequences in the computer before you film them. So I worked for him on the movie called The BFG, where you have this sort of giant, friendly giant who's basically strolling around, and you have to visualize all these shots because there's massive scale difference between the main actress and this digital character who was entirely digital. And so yeah, a lot of design and animation work.
Okay. And what is, I hate to sound like a newbie and a rookie, but a lot of the audience is, what the heck does that mean, design and visualization on movies?
Yeah, sure, that makes sense. So the average person maybe knows what a storyboard is, right? If you see a movie, you have seen storyboards and they kind of draw it, what has to happen. But nowadays, movies are so complicated. They try to do, action sequences are so complicated. So you need to get everybody on the same page. First of all, you have to decide what's going to happen. And then, literally 500 people have to know what they have to do. If you say helicopter's going to crash into a building, everybody imagines something different. So what you do is you create sets of the movie that you plan to do in the computer, which is inexpensive compared to making them for real. And now, almost like a Pixar or Disney movie, you animate what's going to happen. And that allows you to do this before an actor is cast, before a set is built. And you can be a small team with the director, and they can already flesh out some ideas. They're like, okay, what if the helicopter comes from the window? What if he crashes, from a different side? And you can literally cut together sort of animated versions of the movie, and the studio can see it also, and they can figure out how much it's going to cost. Maybe there's a green screen involved. Maybe you have to blow up the building. Maybe you realize part of it has to be done differently. So it's kind of like laying the train track before the movie. And the difference to a storyboard is because it's 3D, you have real world measurements. So if you place a virtual camera in that 3D space, the lens will look exactly like it will look, later on set, or the film set you're building, the distance, let's say how far that helicopter is away or the building that blows up. will be exact when you are on the day. You now have a blueprint for what to do. So it helps to save a lot of money.
Yeah, well, that's amazing to think about, and that helps us sort of really visualize what it means to be, creative and a visual within that space. Now, for an audience member that could just be graduating college, that's really inspired by your career and your journey, and they want to get into this sort of world of AR, VR, or movies, or creative technology, what advice could you give these Gen Zs to do so?
Well, you live in the best time ever in humanity because you have YouTube, and you can learn anything from there. And there's so many online schools from, let's say, if you want to be an animator, it's animationmentor.com. People from Disney or ILM will be your teachers. And just know you live in an amazing time. Like when I started out, there was a couple books and, there was some CDs or DVDs you had to order. Now you can just stream it and you're ready to go. And also the best softwares are available. Stuff is in real time. Incredible computer graphic cards are available. So it's amazing what is possible now and has become just in the last few years. I would say there's many disciplines in that field, So if you want to do AR, you could be a programmer. You probably want to learn Unreal Engine or Unity. Also for the virtual reality space, you may want to be a character designer. Maybe you need to learn ZBrush or Mudbox or one of those softwares to learn how to sculpt characters. You could be on the more technical side, character rigging, how a character moves, or the whole clothing. So 3D in itself is a whole field. So if you want to do, you need to look at 3D animation softwares. That's one thing on the design side, and then the programming side. And app programming languages, like want to program for the iPhone or for Android. That's for now.
Okay, and does VR and AR 3D, does all of it sort of mesh together? Like, can you enter one industry and somehow connect with the other?
Yeah, I think that's the beautiful thing, that the whole 3D industry it's all connected to some degree. You could work in computer games, you could work in visual effects, you can work in mobile games or app development, and it all kind of is connected, and I think it's going to get more and more connected as we move forward. They used to be very separate, but as computers are getting so good and the graphics, it's all going to just mesh together into one.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. That's good to know. Now, obviously, before you started this company and working on these projects, did you work for? I know you worked for Snapchat, but after college and how many years did you actually spend working for someone before branching out and launching your own thing?
Looking back, I would say for sure it's probably been about 15 years, 16 years working, at different companies like DreamWorks or all these visual effects previous studios, and then Snapchat. So I don't think there's a right answer to when that is, but at the same time, I'm sure a lot of experience helps.
Sure.
And at the same time, to make that jump is not easy.
Yeah. The jump is the hard part.
Yeah.
How do you make the jump? Like, is it a cash flow thing? Is it just it feels right? Like, how do you educate someone to make the jump?
After what I've experienced, I would say don't make it when you think it feels right, because that's not realistic. But so the big issue I would say is that when you're employed, you're used to a steady paycheck, and people their dream is, well, I just want to be paid more and have more time off, maybe, or work on a better project, and that's kind of it. But they forget that that company is providing so many things to you that you don't realize. They acquired the job. They had the money is ready to come to you. There's even all the equipment is there. So all of a sudden, and that on a regular basis, not just 1 month, but months after the other. And people are also maybe a bit spoiled that way. So the moment you go on your own, you realize, well, none of that is there. There's no tech support. Maybe you booked a project for this month, but now there's none. All of a sudden, that stuff being employed looks very good. So the ability to have enough traction, to have regular clientele, or to have a product that, if it's a SaaS product, that people want to continuously buy and order is, it's almost like a train that has to made moving, and it takes a lot of persistence, and ultimately it has to be something that people want. It's not enough that you like it or think it's cool. The market is deciding, is that what they want, and to. Yeah, some cases it might be annoying because you I love this, but nobody cares for it, or just the product that your market wants from you is not what you're excited about. So that's obviously the challenge, and it's the marketplace.
Yeah, Raphael, you said something really important there because I don't know how active you are on Instagram, but my generation, us 20 years old and plus, are glamorized by the idea of entrepreneurship. Like we see people private jets, Hamptons every weekend. Like they're like, "Wow, entrepreneurship is amazing,"
Yeah,
until they see the reality of entrepreneurship, which is not what everyone thinks it is. So I love that you
yeah,
said that it's like
okay,
the reality of the paycheck is actually not that bad when you have benefits and steady
yeah.
cash flow. Entrepreneurship is amazing. It unlocks so much freedom, but you're highlighting to them the reality of how freaking hard it is too.
Yeah, I love that you just brought this topic up because it's one of my favorite things I'm debating these days. And it's the issue that what Instagram is, and it's actually fun, it fits our topic here of virtual reality. In my opinion, Instagram has become virtual reality. It's not the headset, it's Instagram. Because it started out with, if you go back to the beginning of Instagram, with a couple of cool images and people liking it. And then it became more and more where people build entire virtual personas, entire virtual reality, so to speak, where like they're always on vacation, they're always on private jets. Everybody has the luxury life of a princess of I don't know, Saudi Arabia or something. And everybody's a model. Everybody looks perfect. Every meal looks incredible, but nobody's sharing the negatives. Few people share, well, I'm stressed right now. This happened. So it's easy for people, they're almost looking through a looking glass into another world where everybody's life's perfect, and then they go back to theirs and they feel depressed about it because it's not reality. It isn't, And now people use so many apps to augment their look. And the next step is you'll use AI and machine learning to build entirely different backgrounds and clothes and things that's not even there. So, and then all the brands are in the whole game for it too, of course, and everybody's fighting for attention. I think we already have virtual reality, and it's not the headset, it is Instagram and others. And how much further can that go? And you almost we have to learn again, how can you switch it off? Like who's your real friends? A friendship is not based on a DM or a like. People have friendships because they didn't like their pictures or something, or they feel got ignored. At the same time, they won't call them and ask how they're doing, or prefer to meet up. So people got obsessed with building their own brands. People becoming selfish because they will walk in it anywhere. They want to. Who cares whose place it is? Who cares about respect? I just need to take my photos and my feed, and it's kind of like a gold rush, and people are so addicted to it. But at the same time, they're not getting closer to happiness because it's so much stress. You're never enough. You're told it's never enough. Everybody lives better with you. So how can you be happy in that? So do people to slow down and maybe maybe the best advice I can give again is my good friend gave me, which basically is, well, you need to unfollow people. So the best way is maybe not following, but it's unfollowing. So your feed actually becomes more simple again, and you control that. So be careful who you follow, what virtual or alternate reality you're subscribing to, and that you're putting your mind into.
Yeah, look, Raphael, that's amazing advice, because even now, like if you look at Instagram likes, let's say you get 50 likes on something, and that might make you really upset. Oh my gosh, only 50 likes. If you visualize it, we talk about VR, you visualize it and you put 50 people in a room, that's a lot of people. Oh, I got 500 likes, but someone got 5 million likes, like Kim Kardashian. 500 people in a room is a lot of people. So this virtual reality of Instagram, the beautiful example you used, has really, really shifted our narrative and our mindset of what's real and what's not. So it's really cool that you mentioned that.
Yeah, and of course there's also money involved now, right? People they don't want to go to work. They rather want to be an influencer and be paid to do it. But there's also a whole negative side on that, because your entire life is now commercialized. Just drinking a latte is now an event, or that you're at a hotel but people don't realize how it's done, which means influencers, I've seen that world. You walk into, there's 20 women brought in by a brand, and then they all shoot at the hotel. They don't talk to each other. Everybody's obsessed about their own success. So in a fun way, rather than connecting, it also makes people disconnect. Of like, everybody's just about me now. And I don't know, the most interesting thing might be to connect with other people and learn things about them you don't know, but you might have to ask and talk to them. It's not done with a like. So
yeah. Yeah, I know, right? And it's interesting coming from you because this is your space, the virtual space. You almost have to
Yes,
like
I'm a
you have to
hypocrite.
live in
Oh
the
no.
space. So for you,
Well, I'll come
so,
back to the argument of the search. That you look at things and information is presented to you in a useful way. So I'm a big fan of holograms, which is another dream. But what if we don't have heads? We just have holographic displays, and now you can interact with objects in 3D space. No, yeah, we have to check in where that development is. We may be able to go to Mars, but we haven't figured out holograms. We need to get Elon Musk on the hologram thing. I think that would be great.
I saw Elon Musk. Did he just announce that he's selling like a robot, some sort of robot for $20,000? Did
I
you see
saw
that?
that. Yeah. Okay.
What is that? Do you know? Like I had no
Yeah.
idea what he's doing there.
Well, I think they're now starting to build robots because Tesla is in reality, it's an AI company, right? They get all this data and they're learning from it, and now they're trying to build robots that could help in the assembly line, and then maybe in the future can do your dishes or something. Yeah, or your podcast. Who knows? One day you'll have a robot
Yeah,
guest.
they'll do it for me.
See how you feel.
That will be an interesting future. Wow. Okay, so on Tesla, great company. It became $1 trillion company. You work in the metaverse, which is hold up. I have to ask you, Raphael, what like the metaverse, does Facebook own the metaverse, or is it its own code? Like what the like I don't
Yeah.
understand that. Or does
Okay.
Snapchat have their own
Yeah.
like what is
I think we have to again. The issue is the term metaverse. It's a massive. It's almost like the word internet, or even bigger. Uber internet. So it's hard to say that what people mean by that or what they don't mean by it. They changed the name to Meta. There is many metaverses. Again, that could be a metaverse can just be its own sort of platform where people interact. That maybe would be better to call it a 3D website or a 3D portal or something like that. And yeah, let's hope Facebook does not own the metaverse. That's maybe not good. So they already have all our data and everything else. So let's maybe somebody else do that.
I know, right? And so okay, so you worked at Snapchat.
Yeah.
What did you do for Snapchat when you worked there?
At Snapchat, I was an augmented reality designer working on all the like dog filters and stuff like that for brands. And yeah, it just turned out so many brand campaigns, and you try to come up with new ideas. And it's the early days of now you can do so much more, So now you already can do body tracking and clothing and everything.
Yeah, I think I asked you the question about Meta. I think it's an important question to ask you about Snapchat, being that you worked for Snapchat. Is Snapchat a social media app, or is it a virtual reality? Like,
Yeah.
what do you think when you define Snapchat?
For me, Snapchat is much more like WhatsApp because it's not really so much about you're not building a profile. It's more meant to be you're messaging your friends and close circle, and then things disappear. So, in my opinion, they're definitely are still a leader in the AR space. They're far ahead and they're driving that, which is great. But yeah, they're a mix between social media and social media messaging. But yeah, I think they still have sort of a core base of people that use it. But people are not building profiles, and people are not really, building massive successful profiles anymore like they do on TikTok, which people really can make a lot of revenue. And yeah, so.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And then the other companies that I haven't mentioned, like Roblox and Nike, and all these companies are getting involved in the metaverse. What's the value add for these companies like Nike to get there, Roblox? Like, what does it do for them?
I think you have to get started somewhere. Again, people are exploring what could you do in the virtual space, and so there's a lot of people kind of trying things out. Of course, what happened is the whole NFT thing, where people basically sell digital collectibles, and then people have this gold rush of like, I now own something exclusive, which I also feel was very unfair because you're basically monetizing your fan base, and then if things crash or don't go well, how do they feel about that? Doesn't mean it could be a digital, asset that could be owned, but the idea you're selling a monkey face and tell all of us it's worth, hundreds of thousands of dollars, still a mystery to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's just Roblox is a technology company. They're pushing metaverse stuff forward, meaning it's a platform that you can build 3D experiences, 3D websites. And so I'll keep pushing for that term. It's more clear than what that is, than the metaverse.
Sure.
So many people. So.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. Yeah, and okay, so do you envision a future? Because I know Walmart got involved in the metaverse as well too. Do you see a future where I put on my headset, I can go to Walmart virtually, I can pick out the groceries I want, and then those groceries get delivered to my house? Like, is that a real future coming soon?
I think this is actually a pretty good concept. I'm not sure you would need the headset for it. I still hope you don't need the headset at all. Like, it might be, that's why I would say a 3D website where you can browse, almost like walk in and do it the same way. And maybe it's a good mix of 2D as it is now and 3D. It's just a very more easy way to do this and to see everything you want to see and then order it. In some cases, the headset will be useful to go there and feel like you're there. And hopefully it's all cross-platform, that you're not locked into one way, and many people can use in different ways. And yeah, again, I'll bring up the hologram. That'll be much more fun where you're like, okay, use my fingers, I see it, and then so, but yeah, has to be also, that's another problem.
I mean, so that's a whole different project.
Let's leave that for I just fear we forget about it. So that should have been the way to go, but we can't bend lasers. So
I know, right? Yeah. It's funny, and I know holograms are becoming a project too now. Do you think, are they much farther away than like the meta concept?
I need to check in on where things are at. I just haven't heard much or seen much that there has been big breakthroughs, but it would be great if there were. So if there is, I'll be on it.
Yeah. And so as we get sort of into the conclusion side of the podcast, before we leave this sort of metaverse world, just a couple questions that came to my mind. So you said you were working on stuff like the dog filters at Snapchat and the augmented reality division. How does that work? Like visualize to us what it means building AR when you were working at Snapchat.
Well, it just meant that, there was, at the time they only had Lens Studio was only internal. There was brands who say they want to do a filter, and there was sort of a discussion of what that could be, and you create concepts for it. And now that's basically a big industry of its own. Brands saying we want a filter for Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok also, and putting the user at the center of the experience. And basically then try to create a filter that really spreads virally, which is great. So yeah, it really allows that basically instead of George Clooney, another person in the ad, you're in the advertisement and you'll share with your friends. And it's an incredible opportunity to put the user at the center of a product or a brand campaign that was never possible before. So.
Sweet. Yeah, that makes total sense. And, when you look at your viral projects like Iron Man and Black Mirror that have been featured in the media, what were those projects you created? Were they for the movies, like in the Black Mirror show and the Iron Man movie, or was it like a artistic project outside of that? Explain that to us.
Sure. The Iron Man project was at the time I always was fascinated by viral, and I thought, okay, what kind of project could I do with Iron Man? And funny enough, at the time I was able to attend the Golden Globes, and I ran into Robert Downey Jr. And I asked him if I could take a picture with him, and he said no. And he's like, I have to go present, and walked off just the way he's in the movie. And at the time, it kind of inspired me. I was like, okay, what if Iron Man, is not arrogant and he's one of the common people? In his case, I had worked on his movies, so I felt like, okay, why not? And so I came up with the idea, what if Iron Man can no longer fly? And basically, created, what if he's the common man? He has to fly economy class. He has a boring office job and all these things. And what that visually look like? And so, it was a combination of photography and 3D. And then I put it out, and it got featured in the Huffington Post. And then, funny enough, Robert Downey Jr. himself actually tweeted it, which was great. And I also got to present it at A&E in New York for leading up to the number 2 of Marvel. So that was fun.
That is amazing. That's so cool how it comes full circle like that. You're at the Golden Globe and Robert Downey Jr., he says no to taking a picture with you, and he's very hotshot Iron Man. But at this time, you had already worked on his movies, right? Like
exactly. But that's
different directors on the movies.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's all good. It's okay.
Wow. Yeah. It's no hard feelings.
No hard feelings.
What did you do in the in the Iron Man movies? What did you do exactly?
So I was part of the very first Iron Man movie. I was more so on the second one. They were all in parallel, the Incredible Hulk. But basically, Marvel Studios did not exist yet. These were the first 2 movies, and they had to succeed. And of course, Marvel is huge today, but at the time that was a long shot. And so again, I worked in the field of pre-visualization, creating action sequences in the Hulk movie, and then also as part of the Iron Man team. And I was also part of my work colleagues were figuring out how to build the Iron Man suit. Like, how does you put the suit on? You know, so they were like, they knew there was a suit, but nobody had come up with how they would put the suit on. So you use previs to, and some of my coworkers came up with this whole way of how they can put the suit on and everything. And of course, Iron Man flying and all the action sequences. So it was a great example where how pre-visualization was used and bringing these movies, how they're made.
What was the coolest action scene you built for either the Hulk or the Iron Man? The visual effect.
Oh, good question. I got to work on Iron Man 2 on the suitcase suit. So how there's a scene where he's fighting Mickey Rourke on the Monaco racetrack, and he doesn't have his suit on, and then basically the character Happy comes and drops him a suit, and then has to, you know, how that whole suitcase suit is being put on and all that is very, very challenging, and it was fun to work on that.
That's amazing. Well, what an illustrious career you've had working with Steven Spielberg, who I call a GOAT, one of the greatest of all time, working on some of the coolest movies, and now pioneering a space that is young, growing, and exciting. You know, what can you leave the audience with? Like, where do you see the future of the world headed, even just past the meta? Like, where do we go here in the next decade as a world? Because you're a creative guy, you're a visual. You know, creatively, what does the world look like in the next 5 to 10 years for you?
It's a big question. Well, I hope the world gets more positive. Yeah. You know, it's so much, again, with the, let's say, Instagram, while it looks positive, it's actually a negative. If everything is basically overloaded with fake content and people believing it, feeling bad about it. And the same with the world news of, you know, from war to financial crisis to COVID to I don't know what. So I don't know. I hope we find a way to launch positive news more, to find ways to, as we're bombarded with ads, why can't we bombard it with stuff that really is helpful to you, and maybe even stuff that's not good for you is not, you know, filter out in a way. So we get smart about it. What's good for you. Would be great. Maybe also where we go is that maybe with DNA analysis or other things that you really can create a profile of who you are, and then you're constantly reminded of what is good for you, what to avoid. Like, let's say your DNA shows you shouldn't drink Coca-Cola or something like that, or stay away from alcohol. But I don't know, if you eat this and that, you will do well. So the whole using all the information available, and then content and the thing you're learning is presented in that way. I think that'd be really great, versus people are just kind of digging through the internet of like, okay, where's the good stuff, and and this and sensationalism, and maybe also news better, you know, just there's a copy paste culture now of news, and maybe more to in-depth research again and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting world of where we could be headed. And coming from someone like you, I really wanted to ask that question, as deep as it was, because you have such a unique way to look at the world, and, you know, from the effects you create. So I appreciate that. Now, one question I always ask my guests is, because a lot of my audience is in their early 20s, aka Gen Zs. You know, if someone's graduating college today, what's like Raphael's 30-second commencement speech? Like, what are the key points you're giving them as they graduate today?
Good question. What would I tell them? Well, I think first thing you should do is you should tax yourself. So tax yourself of your income 10% or 20% and never touch it. And so if you want to become an entrepreneur or whatever later on, you will always have reserves, which is what will save you and will allow you to do it. Versus people maybe in this day and age, people are overspending, and especially they want to impress other people on Instagram or whatever, and doing things they're not ready for. So that would be the number one thing you should do, in my opinion. Then probably you really have to find yourself people who are doing where you want to go, and learn from them, and ideally see success cases, and also people maybe who are generous enough to share their knowledge with you and wisdom to help you out, and maybe also are patient with you. And in the end, if you really want to go on your own or have a successful career to some degree, you have to be so hungry and so dedicated. It has to be a field that you can sustain it. That means it's placed to your strengths to some degree, a place where you can overcome adversity, but also where a place where you can see success. That means you have seen people succeed and you could understand how it happened. And so it's an achievable thing for you in that way. You're like, okay, these people did it. This is how I did it. I see a path how this could be me, you know. And I don't know. You live in the best age in humankind, meaning anything you can learn, everything is available. The internet's growing at a rapid pace, so anything is available to you. But you still have to come up with something that's useful. And yeah, I hope you do.
I know, right? We have to.
Yeah.
Well, that is
Yeah.
amazing advice, Raphael. So tell the audience where they can find you, your company, your journey, follow you, any events you got going on.
Sure. Yeah, you can find me on our website is Superba. That's SUPERBA.biz. And yeah, you can look me up maybe on Facebook, or happy to shoot me an email at raffal@superba.biz. And also LinkedIn is fine. And yeah, happy to hear what people are up to.
Yeah, awesome. And then you have something coming up in January? What is that?
So we're going to be at CES in Las Vegas, and where's the Consumer Electronics Show. So we're going to showcase augmented reality work and some metaverse projects, and also some digital assets that we'll present soon that people can buy.
Awesome, guys. Well, that is Raffael Dickreuter, who is the CEO and founder of Superba, which is a VR augmented reality company that works in a multitude of space. He's worked with some of the biggest companies like Snapchat. I really appreciate the time today. I appreciate the mentorship and the conversation and being able to not only provide a realistic look at the world, but a also bullish view on how people can learn. So the actionable insight you gave us. So I'm going to put all his information in the descriptions below, so you'll be able to find him. You'll be able to check out his company. Maybe you want to hire Raphael for a project that you're working in the VR space, because this guy, I sat down with him in person. Man, he knows a lot of this. You know, we could have sat here for 4 hours talking about AR and VR. So it was amazing, and it was such a pleasure to have you on, Raphael, today. And thank you so much for being our mentor today.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a great day.